Scott, your new book is called A Revolution of Common Sense. Once again, how Donald Trump stormed Washington and fought for Western civilization. And one question I wanted to start with just off the bat, and I'm sure you get this all of the time, but the case that you make is not just about Donald Trump. It's literally about the potential decline of Western civilization, sort of an existential crisis that you think is staring Western civilization in the face. And I know a lot of people from kind of McConnell world, obviously you do too, and you know this as well as I do. Some of them, it's sort of, they'll publicly talk, oh, I love Donald Trump, MAGA. And then privately, maybe you're having some Kentucky bourbon with them and they're like, that guy is a freaking moron. But that's not you. That's not you. So I wanted to ask if you could tell us a little bit about how you came to really see Trump as, you use this word in the book, a bulwark for Western civilization.
Well, first of all, the title of the book, A Revolution of Common Sense, How He Fought for Western Civilization, the common sense part came from his inaugural address. I was sitting at the CNN set. He said, we're going to have a revolution of common sense. I thought, that is the perfect way to describe what's going on here. And then as I was writing the book and I was exploring the issues and I was really thinking about what's at stake, I kind of realized we're just not fighting about day-to-day politics anymore. We're not just fighting about this bill or that regulation. There's something larger going on. You have our fiscal situation, you have our cultural situation, you have this mass migration crisis that afflicted most Western countries. Europe has largely been overrun. You know, we had an invasion, I think, of 20 million people. And so, you know, all these things are kind of coming together. And I talked to Elon Musk about this for the book. And it really could lead to the downfall of the West. And then you look inside of our country and you look at what's going on our college campuses. I mean, these are not people who are there to uphold Western civilization in some cases. They're there to tear it down. You look at some of the candidates the Democrats are running. I think Mamdani is a good example of this. These people here do not believe in America. They don't believe in the American founding. They think the American founding and the roots of Western civilization are inherently rotten at the core and therefore must be ripped out, root and branch. So the case I make is that we have to stop thinking small and we have to stop thinking short term and we have to start thinking about whether our children and our grandchildren are going to inherit a world that is overrun by ideologies that are really the enemies of human liberty and human freedom. And Donald Trump, I don't know whether he knew he was signing up for this or not, but he's our leader. And so, you know, is there a politician alive I agree with 100% of the time? No, but I'll tell you this, I have come to appreciate Donald Trump's willingness to fight, not just for the sake of it, but for the sake of winning and winning on things that are absolutely germane to the future of the West, whether that is political issues, cultural issues, foreign affairs issues. This man's fighting the fight on all fronts, and he deserves a good, solid defense of it in this book and on television every single night.
And you've been around politics for a long time. When do you think the stakes started to feel like this was really about common sense versus, what's the opposite of common sense?
Uncommon nonsense. And I say that in the book. That's what we're up against. Uncommon nonsense. You look at the opposition, the liberal movement, the progressive radicals, and they take frequently the position that's held by 5, 10, 15% of the country, and they try to ram it down your throat as though you just have to accept it. And, you know, during the Biden years, Biden sort of ran as a moderate, but he outsourced his policies and his administration to the radicals. And he put a wet blanket over this country on cultural issues like the transgender ideology, on the DEI stuff. This is what they did to the country. And Trump shows up and says, we're not doing that anymore. I'm just going to say what everyone else is already thinking, that this is uncommon nonsense. He takes the wet blanket off the government, but then tangentially, it gives a permission structure for, say, corporations and even some universities to remove this ridiculous ideological crusades from their ecosystems as well. So he came along at the exact right time. I was talking to Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary for this book, and he used the phrase on the brink to describe to me how they found the country when they took over. And honestly, I don't think he just meant financially. I think he meant culturally and in a lot of areas. We were on the brink of something very terrible, and Trump is kind of rescuing us from this right now, although it can all go away. You know, you elect the wrong people in the next elections and the pendulum can swing back, and it would be terrible for us and terrible for the West.
Well, can anyone be that bulwark against existential crisis potentially other than Donald Trump? Because it strikes me reading the book, one of the things that I think made you and many normal Americans and normal conservatives, normies, people in the suburbs of Louisville or in rural areas of Wisconsin, wherever it is, one of the reasons they like Donald Trump is that he is unlike a career politician and in ways that are very well suited to this era. I mean, one line that jumped out at me from the book was from your prologue, which people should read because in and of itself, it's super interesting. You write, quote, "The influence of X on our public discourse is vast, more than people realize." And I want to get into that because it's about your career, but it's also, for the context of this question, about the president himself. So is there anybody who can step into those shoes and be the leader of the common sense revolution? Everyone thought it was kind of Glenn Youngkin, and then maybe Winsome Sears could do it, but we don't really have an heir apparent, I think, to Trumpism on the right. Maybe you disagree, Scott. What do you think?
I interviewed him for my radio show after I had finished the book, and I said, "Who is the most likely person to carry on your coalition? Who can hold the coalition together?" Because it's a broad coalition. There's a lot of different kind of people in it. And he answered me for about 5 minutes, but he never said a single name. I think
Incredible.
he was, we had miles and miles of crowds. He was, I can hear him saying it now. And by the way, he's exactly right. You cannot replicate this. However, it can be carried forward. And if it's going to be J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, which I think would be a fine ticket for 2028, what they have to do is not try to replicate Trump because you can't, and not try to imitate Trump because you can't. But what you have to do is you have to find the issues and you have to find the fighting spirit that attracted people to Trump in the first place. I'll tell you what I learned writing the book. I've worked for George W. Bush in the White House. I've spent time with Donald Trump in the White House. I've been around other presidential campaigns. When you're a Republican running or being the president, you face an onslaught of institutions that are trying to overwhelm you, an entrenched federal bureaucracy that's trying to stop all your policies, Democrats who want to, who hate you and want to destroy you, media that hates you and wants to destroy you. And in the case of Trump, a federal judiciary that is increasingly stridently trying to supplant the executive branch as the supreme authority of the country. All these things, I actually think, collude and work together to try to overwhelm any Republican who runs for president or gets elected president. And this time around, Donald Trump said, "I am not going to let them overwhelm me. I am going to overwhelm them." That's the story of this book. How much Donald Trump did in the first 100 days to overwhelm the forces that would normally try to overwhelm any Republican president. And so carrying forward the coalition, you can't replicate Trump. He is unique. It's the greatest comeback since Napoleon. But you can take these lessons from him, the fight, and not let the forces that are destined to overwhelm you get the better of you. And I think he's shown us how to do that. And so it'll be up to Vance and Rubio or whatever we do in 28 to follow through on that and to stay with it. Even if they have different ideas slightly on an issue, even if they come up with new platform things, it's really the spirit and the tactics of not allowing yourself to be sucked under by what official Washington can do to a Republican.
When did you, I mean, again, this is what's so interesting to me is I know Andrew Sullivan, for example, wrote a blog post on last Friday on a Substack about how he said, "I get it, but I don't have Trump derangement syndrome because I am totally I'm conscious of what people call Trump derangement syndrome." And I just think his temperament, he was talking about calling a reporter piggy and all of that. He said, "I just think there's something I personally," Andrew Sullivan was saying, "take seriously the question of style and temperament and comportment in public office." And we could have a separate debate about that. But it seems to me like that is maybe the fault line of people who come from sort of Bush, Cheney, maybe McConnell world to like half and half. Half went and said, "No, this is an existential battle. We can put that stuff on the side." And then the other half said, "No, I can't get over that." How did you kind of come to see Trump? Again, as you read, I keep using this quote from the book, but you say, quote, "I had come to find a new respect for Trump in no small part because I began to see him as a necessary and strong bulwark against the political opposition that had lost its damn mind." When about was that for you? And how are you thinking about that? As I'm sure many of your friends and people you've been close with over the years were coming down on a very different side.
Yeah, look, during the 2024 campaign, I kept hearing these Republicans say things like, in order to save conservatism, we have to vote for Kamala Harris.
Incredible.
And, as someone who had to sit out there and debate these issues every night, I could never sort of figure out why they were saying that, what they meant by that. And then I started to think about the underlying arguments they were making, the other statements they were making, and I realized that they weren't trying to save conservatism, they were trying to liberalize it. I mean, a lot of these people no longer vote for any Republican. A lot of these people no longer are pro-life. A lot of these people no longer really believe in any of the conservative stuff that we have all supposedly been fighting for the last 25 years. They let their personality conflicts or problems with Donald Trump completely and totally change what they claim to be fighting for. I mean, heck, look around. Nicolle Wallace, one of the lead anchors over on MSNBC, we relied upon her for communications advice in the Bush White House.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is somebody who built their career supposedly communicating with the American people about George W. Bush's conservative agenda. And now she is one of the most deranged Looney Tunes in American media. Okay.
Scott, what was that like? Can I just ask? It's not every day you talk to somebody who actually was hearing conservative messaging advice from Nicolle Wallace. What was that like?
Well, I mean, you could see we had like a 30% approval rating during the second term when I was there, so it wasn't very much fun. I mean, but my question now is this. Did you ever believe any of it? Did you ever believe in it? I mean, Bush was a conservative guy. Did you ever believe in any of it? Tim Miller, this other Looney Tunes, he was supposedly a Republican operative. Now he is one of the most liberal people in our political affairs ecosystem. Did you ever believe any of it? And what is it about Donald Trump that made you change every single thing that you supposedly ever believed in? And I don't understand how one person could break so many supposedly smart and experienced people. But you look around, all these people who are making this argument that in order to save Republicans or save conservatism, you had to vote for Kamala Harris. I mean, that is the craziest bunch of crap I have ever heard in my life. And so that was going on. And then you had all the liberals making their arguments. And then you had Harris, who was objectively one of the worst candidates in my lifetime for any high political office. And I just, I realized, look, I'm not going to be sucked under by these silly people and their silly arguments. I'm fighting a larger battle here. And the larger battle is, which of these people actually loves America? Which of these people is actually going to stand up for the West? And if Donald Trump does what I want him to do 95% of the time, and he loves America and he stands up for America, and Kamala Harris does what I want her to do 0% of the time, and we're going to spend our 250th anniversary apologizing to the rest of the world for America, this is an easy vote for me every day of the week. And so I was more than happy to vote for him for a third time. I was more than happy to make the case for him. I was more than happy to knock down these stupid arguments. And to this day, I still do not understand people who claim to be Republicans running around having voted for Democrats in each of the last three elections, having advocated for Democrats to win the Senate, having advocated for Democrats to win the House, having advocated for pro-abortion policies, having advocated for every liberal social crusade, and then have to look me in the eye and say, you're hurting conservatism by supporting Donald Trump. F all the way off. That's what I say.
Tim Miller catching some strays here from Scott Jennings. I want to play this.
I mean, honestly, just the worst. I don't know if I've ever been around anybody who was less good at their job, but more condescending. Like his talent to condescension ratio is so far off. It's ridiculous.
It's too bad you guys are on different networks, because I have a feeling that would be electric. Every night after night, that'd be a good one. Do you all know what I'm thankful for this Thanksgiving? You're gonna know right away what I'm thankful for. It's obviously masa chips. There's really only one option here. But we all love Thanksgiving and the holidays because it kind of gives you a chance to go back to the basics and eat real food together as a family. And today's sponsor, Masa, is part of the real food movement. So important. Masa chips contain just 3 ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow, which is delicious. With Masa, you'll feel satisfied, light, and energetic with no crash, bloat, or gross, sluggish feeling afterwards. You definitely don't want that after holiday snacking. Personally, my favorite flavor of Masa is lime. I love the spicy flavor. So that's the habanero. I love the churro flavor for dessert. But if you love Masa, then you'll also love Vandy Crisps. because speaking for myself, I also really love Vandy Crisps. Vandy, Masa's sister company, makes the most delicious 3-ingredient potato chips I've ever tasted. My favorite flavor is smokehouse barbecue. I really love also the original flavor. I'm like almost embarrassed by how much I love Masa and Vandy Crisps, as you can tell. So if you're looking for the best Black Friday deal on Masa, Masa always offers our audience a Black Friday level offer of 25% off on their first purchase. So if you use code AFTERPARTY for 25% off your first order at masachips.com or at vandycrisps.com, you get that discount, or you can simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this delicious offer.